All right. Is Jiu-Jitsu a complete martial art? Let's talk about it. Before I get to yapping, I want you guys to type away if you think Jiu-Jitsu is a complete martial art. Tell me why you think it's a complete martial art. If you don't, that's good. Let me see the discourse in here. And if you just don't know and you want to talk about something else, please go ahead and type that away now. Now, for me, I do believe Jiu-Jitsu is a complete martial art, but not what you might think. And we're going to go over a couple of different nomenclatures first, because I know some people's going to be like, oh, well, Jiu-Jitsu guys don't know how to strike, for example. Jiu-Jitsu guys don't have weapons. What happens if you get jumped in the street trying to do your fancy Jiu-Jitsu? Well, first off, let me explain. There's a difference between self-defense and martial arts. I'm going to make another video about that. There is a stark difference. And I think that the self-defense community, there is a self-defense community, but I don't think that they know that they're a self-defense community. And they're just kind of like mixed up with the martial arts community, but they're two different things. So if you personally ask me, I don't think boxing is good for self-defense. I don't think Jiu-Jitsu is good for self-defense. I don't think Muay Thai is good. I don't think, maybe MMA, maybe, but even MMA, I don't think it's good for self-defense, because the techniques that I would say do for self-defense are starkly different from what all martial arts allow you to do. I believe actually martial arts can probably get you killed, me personally. But does that mean like, okay, now that Smitty says it's a waste of time, should I not go into martial arts for self-defense? No. I think martial arts prepares you well for self-defense, but I don't think like martial arts is self-defense, if that makes sense. So anything where you feel like, oh, you're gonna get jumped and this and that, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, what does Jiu-Jitsu claim it can do, and does it do it? So if you look at karate, for example, karate to me is, I want to say, no, it's actually incomplete. I was going to say karate is complete, but it's incomplete due to the fact that karate has the striking in karate. You have boxing, you have Muay Thai, and karate, especially modern day karate, relies heavily on point fighting, and they brawl a lot. So if you have a good boxer and he could probably pin a karate guy, or like wait till the karate guy gets close, he'll knock him out easily. So is boxing a complete martial art? No, I don't think boxing is so you see, we could talk about this another time of why I don't think these particular striking arts are not complete martial arts, but I'll talk about why I think Jiu-Jitsu is a complete martial art. So you have two different types of like spectrums in the martial art. And by the way, there are different styles of Jiu-Jitsu, so I am gonna piss some people off with what I'm about to say. So you have striking and then you have grappling, okay? Now, Jiu-Jitsu never claimed to be a striking martial art, nor did it claim to be a weapons based. So we got like what? We got grappling, we have striking, and then we have weapons based martial arts, okay? Jiu-Jitsu never claimed to be a weapons or striking based martial art. It claims to be a grappling based martial art, right? And one thing that Jiu-Jitsu does is it is not shy to say, oh, I don't know that. I'm going to take that and I'm going to put that into my art. That's what Jiu-Jitsu has done with the leg lock game. Jiu-Jitsu currently right now is doing it with the wrestling right now. So I believe Jiu-Jitsu is a complete martial art because Jiu-Jitsu claims that it can take someone down, it can control them, and it can submit them. If you take, once we get to the submission wrestler style of a Jiu-Jitsu player that I believe is the complete style of Jiu-Jitsu, when we get to that one, that to me is the embodiment of the completion of Jiu-Jitsu as a complete martial art. But let's talk about the different styles of Jiu-Jitsu. Let's talk about it. So you have Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, okay? You have no-gi Jiu-Jitsu, and then you have submission wrestling, okay? Now, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I'm sorry, I don't think Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a complete martial art. That's with the gi. That is from the Gracies, or maybe I guess Gracie style Jiu-Jitsu, because I can get into the nuance. Once we start getting into the no-gi, I can show you how I think Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu can be a complete martial art, but I believe that they are too, how do I say, like, reliant on the fabric that they have. And a lot of these guys' techniques are non-existent if you take off the fabric, okay? And not to mention, the problem I have with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is they gatekeep a lot of techniques. They're like, oh, you can't do that. You can't do that technique. Oh, this is a bad technique. This is forbidden. And now you would have, like, let's say a guy who practiced 10 years of his life of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specifically, and then he runs into a guy who's a blue belt who's been practicing for 7 months, but that blue belt learned those, like, leg locks in those 7 months, and now this dude just became a black belt. Now he's allowed to do heel hooks and stuff, and then he gets blown away by a blue belt. This stuff actually happens. It happens. So there's too many limitations, I believe, in a art that's already limited. So, which is the ground. How are you gonna limit? Like, we're already laying on the ground, and you're gonna limit even more of us on the ground. Also, if Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys emphasize judo, however, then I do think it would become a complete martial art. If you're a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy and you have actual judo competition experience, because that's where we're going from, because there's tiers. You have actual competition experience with your judo and with your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, then I'm not talking about you, okay? I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the guy who is just training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with the gi, and he maybe competes here and there sometimes, but that's who I'm talking about. Those guys, like that. Your art is not complete. I'm sorry. I piss guys off all the time when I say it. It doesn't work in MMA, or it kind of does, but whatever. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that another time. Let's talk about no-gi though. So no-gi is like, it's the middle child of submission wrestling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So if you have a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy who regularly competes, he goes to competitions, and not only does he compete in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right, but he also takes off the gi, and then he competes no-gi Jiu-Jitsu. So that means his technique, regardless of the fabric, works across like technology. If he takes off the fabric, he still does the same thing. If he puts on the fabric, he still does the same thing. Or maybe his game changes when he takes off the fabric. Those guys, I do believe, now your art is complete, because the stuff that goes on in no-gi, it's a lot faster. The whole game of no-gi is much more different. Some people try to say like, oh, no-gi is not technical. No-gi is all these stigmas to no-gi, but it's just, I think that's cope. To be honest with you, I think it's cope. I think trying to say like no-gi has no technique is just, nah, bro. You just, I guess it's a skill issue. I'm not going to say you suck. It's a skill issue. You get what I'm saying? So now what's the difference between submission wrestling and no-gi? Well, if you go to some of these tournaments, okay, and you enroll, they basically are making a tournament for no-gi, but it's gi, under gi rules. Like you go like IBJJF, some of these places, it's basically a gi tournament, limited rules, with basically the fabric is off. So a lot of leg locks that you would be, like exposed to are non-existent. So it's kind of the same problem, but it's just much faster. But I do still maintain that, well, actually, if you just compete in that format, you're just as worse as, no, not just as worse, but you're there with the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy. But if you're a guy who does both, I feel like you're a little bit complete, kind of. Now, let's get to the submission wrestling. So what the hell is submission wrestling? This is what I mean to be the complete martial art. guided you guys up here. I yapped and yapped and yapped. This right here is what I believe is a complete martial art. Submission wrestling, to me, is the current meta. Someone's calling me right now. It threw me off for a second. Is the current meta of jiu-jitsu right now. Now, the problem with submission wrestling is it has this right now, currently, it has this close mergence with sport jiu-jitsu. So a lot of people believe that when I say submission wrestling, I'm talking about sport jiu-jitsu. But they're just like very close to each other right now. Just keep that in mind, okay? Because sport jiu-jitsu is very leg lock heavy, whereas submission wrestling jiu-jitsu, you would have a guy who does everything. And that is why I believe jiu-jitsu is a complete martial art. If you emphasize everything, there's 3 styles. You have a wrestling game. This is what submission wrestling, this style of jiu-jitsu right now, you see a lot of sports jiu-jitsu guys do it. Honestly, if you really want to see the new wave of what I'm talking about, look no further and look at what the kids are doing. That's what I'm talking about. If you go watch some of these kids and watch them compete, the way these kids move, they're wrestling, they're trying to guard pass. If they fall on their butt, they're doing guard play, they're coming up, they're spinning, they're doing beautiful escapes, they're trying leg locks. This right here is what I'm talking about. I mean, some kids in some divisions, they can't do leg locks, but if you just look at the way these kids are competing, I even seen like a kid who just turned 15 and he went in the adult division. I mean, albeit he was 135 pounds, but he ran through the adult division. I'm like, that's submission wrestling. You know, like that to me is where submission wrestling is going to shine. Sport jiu-jitsu today is very leg lock heavy right now. Some of these guys are kind of trying to learn some submission wrestling, but I believe the next meta is going to be, you're going to see these guys, they're going to be doing everything. So I said there's 3. You have wrestling, you have guard passing, and you have guard play. If you emphasize these 3 positions and master these 3 positions in jiu-jitsu, you are a submission wrestler. What do I mean by that? Because if you're wrestling, everyone knows what wrestling is. There's a lot of like footwork and stuff that you have to do with wrestling. Guard passing also requires footwork, but it's a different kind of footwork than what the wrestlers are used to. I think wrestlers is more like explosiveness, strength, you know, positioning. Same thing with guard passing. I would have to break down the nuances of those, but they're starkly different. That's why I said like it's a thinking man's thing, you know, when it comes to guard passing. You have to actually know jiu-jitsu. That's why you have a lot of wrestlers coming in, and this is where the war comes. The guard players, right? The guard players are the butt scooting guys, the leg lock heavy guys. They have a really deep knowledge. You have guys who are really good wrestlers and guys who are really good guard players who don't want to wrestle, and these 2 are basically at war. And then you have the guard passing middle child, okay? And that one, I'll talk about that another time, but if you can emphasize these 3 positions and you're trying to be like, you understand the importance of submitting your opponent, because I see the kids doing this. The kids make this stuff interesting. If you just go watch the kids compete, the way these kids compete, they're going after it. It's like, oh my God. It's just like, but it's not relatable because they're bending in certain crazy ways. But I just think that this attitude, I'm starting to see like certain kids turn 15, certain kids turn 16. Like I think like a female, Helena, I don't know how to say Helena's last name. She's like, I think she's 17 or maybe she turned 18. I don't know. But she was a little prodigy running through the kids, running through the adult divisions. Like, I'm telling you, like, to me, that is submission wrestling. That is jiu-jitsu. That is the complete martial art that I'm talking about. When these kids grow up in the next few years, if the MMA scene, UFC, is still huge, I believe we're going to see a huge resurgence of new grapplers, because right now jiu-jitsu is really interested in the wrestling, right? And you see these kids are growing up wrestling too. But wait until these little jiu-jitsu nerds start learning how to strike, and they get obsessed with striking, and they start putting like shoot boxing into their curriculum. it's going to be a big explosion. But that's all I have for today. What do you guys think? Go ahead, type away, let me know. Thank you for watching. Y'all take care.